Curtis Davies, welcome to the Integral Chat. Now, I was going to delve directly into your long and illustrious professional career, but because of everything that's going on with the never-ending saga that is Derby County at the moment, I feel like we've really got to start with that, because it's a situation that you thought the season was a roller coaster, but the postseason has been just as mad with, Chris Kirchner's takeover bid falling through. Then obviously Wayne Rooney's made the decision to leave. Now we think we've got another takeover bid that's been accepted. It's all just a bit of a madness. So what's the situation as you understand it now?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It's obviously at Derby County, there's never a quiet day. It's always interesting for the media. The latest I know and what I've been told is that the new owner or the prospective owner is in possession of the stadium, which is one thing, obviously making things a lot easier. He's put in his official bid and I've been told that it's due to be completed on Wednesday. I think that's what the statement was released as well. But I feel more confident about this one simply because these people have kind of waited in the background, waited to see what kind of happened. Then they bought the stadium first before doing anything. And that was always a stumbling block. So I think that the fact they bought the stadium obviously makes things a lot easier. And they are Derby people, they're Derby fans, and fingers crossed it all goes through. But listen, I don't think they would have come out this late down the line, having bought the stadium, for it to fall through. So they'll make it work, and touch wood, the club can start signing players.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, this guy is a Derby fan. He's well known in the community as well. So it seems like it's legitimate and it's all going to, go well. But when you've been through the stuff that Derby's been through, everyone is kind of like, I'll relax when it's done. When it's all done and dusted, I'll relax, because you've had this situation where Chris Kirchner came in. And I mean, how frustrating was that? Because he talked the talk, didn't he? But when it came down to it, he didn't walk the walk. And it's kind of like wasted so much time and wasted a lot of people's energy, and people have got their hopes up and stuff. How difficult is that to take when you keep getting kind of blow after blow and disappointment?
I think the biggest disappointment with the Kirchner one is the fact that he was there in November and he originally put in a bid then that was turned down. And at that time, the club thought they could probably get better. That's fine. And then it came back round to him. And then, we thought the fact that they've come back to him and they've managed to sort of deal, this will be straightforward, get easily over the line. And then obviously it was dragging, and then we were getting told that bank holidays were getting in the way of it and certain things. And then obviously the longer it went on, it just didn't seem right. And then obviously he did confirm that he was pulling out. But I think the biggest frustration from that is that it's probably cost us our manager going now. His team were heavily involved in the takeover with Chris Kirchner. And, it would have been a strong position for the gaffer to be in terms of his recruitment and the players he would have been able to get in, and what he was being promised. And I just feel that because Kirchner had taken the manager that far down the line, I think the fact that it'd all fallen through, I think the manager was exhausted and just thought, can I be bothered to start again with a new owner and a new project potentially? Because, if Kirchner was potentially promising him the world, and then maybe a more reasonable chairman is saying, well, we'll have a go, yes, but we're going to cap it at this. Yeah. It might have been a bit more difficult. So I think that's the biggest disappointment, is the fact that, that the manager's found it that he had to walk away. I guess to protect his reputation as much as anything, to be honest. But it's for us to move on as a football club. I say us, I'm only contracted for another 3 days. But it's something that, the main thing is whatever's happened with Kirchner and the disruption that it's caused and things like that. We're still early enough now, if this takeover can get sorted by tomorrow, in order to actually, we're still early enough that we can sign players in terms of sign the players that are still technically Derby players, and also get players that are targets, because if you start getting into July, then it becomes more difficult because people want to be in football clubs, obviously, before the season starts. But the fact that we've got to the point now where this ownership group looks like it's going to come through, I think the club will be in a really strong position, particularly as a League One prospect. Yeah,
definitely. We'll come to your situation a little bit later on, but just quickly on Wayne Rooney, because, you know, it is a disappointment that he felt that he had to leave. And so with what you've just said, it probably isn't a surprise that he chose to go. But I mean, when you look at what he managed to do, I know he had a team around him. Obviously, he's not just a manager on his own doing the job. But how impressed were you with the way he sort of handled this challenge? Because, you know, he's Wayne Rooney at the end of the day. He's an absolute legend of the game from what he's done and what he's achieved. And to come in and have to deal with some of the crap, quite frankly, that he did, and to stick with it, and to kind of galvanise the team along with his staff. It really did kind of surprise me with what he was capable of doing. What did you feel about the way he sort of handled his first job?
I think when people say the surprise that he could handle all of that, I think the character of him, no. His character, you know, he's a winner. He's the type that I'll prove you wrong. So in terms of the kind of fight and the things we had to go against, I think he had it in his head. It was almost like a challenge to him, he kind of thrived off of the fact that we're fighting against you, we're going to prove you wrong. So that side of it, I'd say that, you know, it didn't surprise me. The thing that surprised me is he just didn't need it. Yeah. You know, he's a very wealthy man. He's obviously had a great playing career. He, in his first full season at a club, do you really want to be involved in a relegation season where, you know, you're losing players and you can't do certain things? But because he stuck around in the craziest way possible, he's actually enhanced his reputation in the relegation season. And not only enhanced his reputation as a manager because of the way we played, but in the fact that he brought through young players. We also under an embargo, but also, you know, he was able to stick by us, and he had a bit of, you know, character about him. And sometimes people don't see that in these superstar players. They just see him as, you know, you kick the ball in the net really hard, you score goals, that's your job kind of thing. But now he's become a manager and he's had to go the other side of it, where he's had to be a bit more, you know, cute with handling people around the training ground, speaking to the young players and speaking to the older players like myself about intricate things that are going on with the takeover or with the administration, stuff like that. It's something that he never would have thought he had to deal with in his career, let alone in his first season. So what I will say is he's done fantastically well with that. But I'm just hoping that, you know, he enjoys his break and enjoys it with his family. But I hope it's not too long before we see him back on the sideline, because, you know, he was a good manager, and I'm sure it'll be a great game for someone soon.
He definitely won a lot of respect for sticking it out, because a lot of people in his position would have just walked away. And I think probably his next job's got to seem a hell of a lot easier than the one he's just had.
Yeah, I think it's twofold, isn't it? It's the next job could be a lot easier in terms of a smoother path. But if he were to go to a top Championship, lower Premier League team, then there's pressure. And I'm not saying Wayne Rooney can't handle pressure, but I'm saying there's pressure on the results, there's pressure on everything. Whereas this season, as much as we put pressure on ourselves, the manager put pressure on us, the outside world had us doomed from the beginning. So I think sometimes when the outside world has already had you doomed and you can just express yourself and do what we did, you know, we played some good football and unfortunately fell short in doing it.
Did you feel like, they thought you were doomed, but you also had their support, didn't you? I think everyone kind of, you were riding the crest of the wave, and I watched quite a few of your games and reported on them that season. Everyone in camp was sort of buzzing, and even like sort of outside from the media, everyone, I think, apart from Forest fans probably,
Yeah.
would have wanted Derby to succeed, because it was a really kind of backs against the wall kind of, underdog story that almost, but not quite, made it.
Yeah, I think that was it. I think it was the neutral fans. We were kind of slowly becoming everyone's second team.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think that had something to do with Wayne Rooney being the manager as well. But, for everything that we'd been through, people seeing, again, the way we were playing, the way we were not giving up, the way that we fought every single thing. We had all these young lads coming into the team. We had the old people like me in the team. And it was just a collective of, defiance.
Yeah.
And I think people liked that.
You had a player like Ravel Morrison as well, who's had his issues, but also he really stepped up, didn't he, to the plate?
And that's it. And this is the character of the gaffer, that he knows Ravel, obviously, from his time at Manchester United. I knew Ravel, and he knew the group around Ravel would be able to help him. Do you know what I mean? We know how good a player he is, and we also know his character. So the people we had around him, he knew that he could bring Ravel in, and Ravel could thrive. And obviously he did really well for us, particularly at the end of the season when he started scoring a few goals. But I just feel in general, it's a group that was put together so well from very limited resources. And I think, like I say, everyone wanted to support us, simply because, again, it was a mismatch, almost like, like you say, the underdogs. But I just think it's a shame we didn't do it, but we felt the support of everyone. And ultimately, football, you have to get the results to get it. And if it was on support, we would have stayed up. But unfortunately, football doesn't work that way, and we'll have to work our way back from League One.
Yeah. Do you think that sort of wave of positivity will continue into the next season? Do you think you'll be able to, if you're still there? I'm assuming we'll talk as if you will be. Do you think it will sort of continue, have that momentum?
I think it will, simply because I think fans will just be delighted to still have their football club. That's the God's honest truth. I think a lot of fans at the start, when first went into administration, and you hear about, there's been 10s and 20s parties interested, and then all of a sudden it's getting longer and longer, and it's been whittled down, and then all of a sudden one takeover breaks down and all that kind of stuff. I think fans will just be happy to have their club back. The other side of it is the fans will see a side that we can potentially have a really enjoyable promotion season. And it's not the level we wanted to be at, but at the same time, if you can go and get promotion, it's massive. But with that, as much as there will be positivity, I think there almost needs to be that bit of honesty. When I first signed for Derby, we were chasing playoffs in the Championship, and if we were to lose a game at home or be drawing the game with a lesser team, we could get jeered off. And I think that needs to come back in. I know it sounds silly, but it does need to come back in, because the crazy thing is, a lot of these young lads that have been in the team haven't experienced any negativity.
Yeah.
So they're going to think, it's brilliant. Like, you just play football and no one ever says anything. But actually, no, when you're chasing for the top, and, it's fine margins between finishing first, second or third, which means a playoff space.
And also other teams are going to want to beat Derby. They're a massive club in that division as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I think the club itself is obviously a massive club. I think the fact that the gaffer's not here anymore takes the target off of our back a little bit more, and the shine off of it. I think maybe a lot of managers might have wanted to get one over on Wayne and stuff like that. But for us, it's just about, yes, we want the positivity, but we need that honesty to make sure that we're doing our jobs right. Because again, there's nothing wrong with losing a game 1-0 if you've worked your socks off, and maybe their keepers are an absolute worldie and made 10 saves, of course. But if you're not at it week in, week out, especially at League One level, and you expect the fans to clap you off, I think you need to have reality check. And I think that's one thing we need to remember.
Well, if you don't win the first 3 or 4 games, I think they'll let you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Lots of teams talk about, togetherness and team spirit and stuff like that. But I feel like from the outside looking in, the players that you guys had around you, you actually really did have that togetherness, and it was kind of like solid. Was it probably one of the tightest knit squads you've played in?
I'd probably say so, yeah. And I think it was it came from pre-season really, because at pre-season last year, I think there were 9 or 10 senior players signed at the time. So basically there was effectively about 10 of us were technically trialists at the time, because I wasn't signed last year either at the time. And from that, we went for a break at Penny Hill Park, and because we were all together there, it was kind of all as a group, we're like, well, what's happening with you? What's happening with you? What's happening? Have you heard anything? Have you heard it? And it was kind of like that togetherness of, oh, well, if we sign as a group, when we looked at the trialists that are around, I thought, well, this could be a really good team to have a go. And then you have that side of it. But then you've also got the young players. So you've got the young players that I've been at the club for 5 years. So I knew all the young players. I've seen them grow up at the club, but they've all got each other. Yeah. So the fact they've all got each other, makes them even closer. They've been fighting alongside one another since some of them under 12s. So that made it a close-knit group. And I just think, obviously, that was one thing. But then when all this negativity from, the administration, then the points deduction on the FFP stuff, it can only bring you closer together, because you see that it's easy to take the negativity and down tools and be like, well, what's the point? We're going to get relegated. But when you've got the youngest player in the team, in a young lad like Darren Robertson, who trained with us, Northern Ireland International young lad, to myself or a Jagielka, and we're all pulling in the same direction. We're all doing exactly the same things every day. I think it just became easy, to be honest, and it made the season, like I say, it made the season enjoyable. We're there at the bottom of the table for whatever 3/4 of the season, but we're able to go into work every day and have an enjoyable working environment. And I think that was important, because if you're always focusing on the doom and gloom of where you actually are in the table, it'd be easy to log off of what we're trying to do as a group. But the fact that we kept positive in terms of, we had a laugh, we still did things normally. We didn't try and set out and say, right, we're going to go with 6 up front in this game and try and, do silly things to try and get wins back. We tried to do it the normal way, which we came close. I think we came to within 5 points of Reading at one point. But I just think it was just, the group, the togetherness. It was just an amazing feeling, and something, that I've probably never felt throughout my career.
Yeah. And when you look at sort of Wayne Rooney as a leader, when you don't know him at all, it's difficult to see where that comes from, because he seems so quiet and softly spoken. He obviously has a different side to him, which we've all kind of known and seen on the football pitch. How does that sort of transpire in terms of his sort of management style?
I'd say as a manager, he's actually a lot more calm. And, we talk about his playing style. Playing style comes from, that adrenaline of being on the pitch. So if someone does make a mistake, he'll let you know. And that's a good thing to know. But the manager this year, to be honest, very calm. There were times when he obviously had to raise his voice, of course, but very calm, never really lost it, was always measured. And that's a credit to him, because, there were some performances that I thought, what, we're going to deserve a rocket at halftime here or at full time. And he was always thinking about the next game. And he realised, and that's where his man management came in, that he realised that he needed to address it, yes. But right now, when we're probably sore from the defeat, no, I'll leave it. And then it will be through the week when we go through the clips and stuff like that, that we'll analyze it, and it'll be an actual analytical rant rather than an emotional rant.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that he probably had learned to control. And yeah, it was credit to him. But I think he realized that within our group, there are people that can take a rollicking, and there's some that can't. And with a lot of young lads in the team, it might make them feel uncomfortable. So I think by doing it in an analytical way, it's easy to show literally what you have or haven't done on the screen.
Yeah.
And then, it's open for debate then.
It's such a skill, I think, to not lose your cool and to know when to say things and when not to, and when to be dramatic and when not to. With Liam Rossigna, who's now the interim, how because he seems like another very quite cool customer. How different is it going to be? I think Shay Given was talking about him this morning, about how tactically he's very, very astute. So that side of thing, I think, is going to be covered. How do you think he'll be able to take the reins?
I think with Liam, I think he's been a massive, massive part of everything that we did last season. So in terms of most of the coaching was done by Liam. Wayne wouldn't be ashamed to say that. Liam, again, I played with Liam at Hull City, and since about 30 years old, he's been a coach in the waiting, basically, because his attention to detail, he's meticulous, he studies everything, in the fact that I think now he's in charge, he'll probably study it even more. So if he's watched a video twice, he'll watch it 3 or 4 times now, because he knows it's his head on the block as well. But he is a meticulous person, and his coaching skill is very good. Obviously, the difference between the two is Wayne Rooney is Wayne Rooney, in terms of what he's done in his career and everything like that. And Liam's had a great career himself, of course. But it's a case of, in terms of in-house, he's got the respect, of course, but it's wanting the people, media that are watching in to buy into him.
Yeah.
Because
and new players.
But I don't think new players will have an issue. I think if they know that Liam was a big part of the style of football that we played, and they want to play that style, I don't think they'll have an issue. An issue might be that he's only interim manager.
Right. So
if you sign for a Liam, and then potentially a new manager comes in and tweaks the style, it might be a bit different. But what I would say about Liam is, yes, he's been a manager in the waiting for a long time, and I think this is a great opportunity for him. I think, in my opinion, he would be the right one to go with, because it's a little bit of continuity that this club needs. We've gone through all the difficult stuff off the pitch. I think from what we had last year in terms of the way we played, the playing style wasn't a problem. So the fact that we have lost a manager is difficult to take. Yes, we're able to maintain, the likes of Liam and Justin Walker. That will be massive in keeping our continuity for these young lads that have been in the team and are going to be bigger parts of the team next year in League One. And if we're able to do that, keep that continuity, then I think stepping into League One in the style that we already know would be a lot easier. But like I say, fingers crossed, the takeover happens. Liam is able to have a say on players that he can bring in. Yeah. And we can move forward as a football club, because I think Liam deserves it, and I think the club deserves to have a good go at it as well.
Definitely. I know that the Derby County fans want the continuity of having you back as well. I've been reading on the forums today. Now, it's still up in the air, but it could be by the end of the week, it could all be sorted, couldn't it, Curtis? Because I know you want to stay, but I'm pretty sure you'll have had offers from elsewhere, because not only were you player of the season, voted for by the fans, you played in every single minute of every championship game. So those legs are still working, and obviously the brain's still ticking over.
Just about those legs. No, it's
there's no hiding place on a football pitch. So the fact that
no.
you managed to do that, you're not an old man by any stretch of the imagination, but on a football pitch, you kind of get in that way. But how much would it mean to you if you managed to be able to stay and take Derby back into the next, back into the Championship?
Oh, it'd be massive, because I think, going back to the fact of playing every minute, I said I came from the season before where I didn't know if I'd carry on playing football. I ruptured my Achilles at 35 again. So as a 36-year-old, I was out of contract, didn't know what I was going to do. Obviously came back to Derby to train and then just see how it went, and obviously got re-signed, and the rest is history. Played every single minute, of course, but that is the thing in today's game. Your age is a big thing. So as much as you have sniffs here and there, nothing has been that entertaining to me that would make me jump at it before having the odd chance to sign for Derby, basically. Derby is a club that is in my heart. It's the club that I've spent the longest time at, the club that I've played the most games for. So to leave Derby would be very, very hard. So it's one of those things. I want to play football. So long as this week potentially something could get sorted, obviously I'd be delighted to sign. And it's one of those things that I said when I won the Player of the Year, that my first season as a pro, I won League One with Luton Town, and if this is to be my last season as a pro, I'm not writing myself off by any means. But if this were to be my last season as a pro, it would be great to win League One with Derby County as well and take them back to the Championship.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So being 35 then and rupturing your Achilles again, having that kind of injury, is that testament to your experience of having injuries before? Have you always had that kind of inner strength to think, I'm going to come back from this? Or were there some real kind of serious doubts that you might have to end your career?
I think the only thing that made me think I'd have to end my career was my age. That's it. It's only my age. I've got tunnel vision. I know from a young age, when I had my first injury, which was my broken foot, I was told it was going to be this long, and then I was given a gym program and all that, and I was just, okay, what do I need to do? Bang, 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 bang. Got it all done. Just did all the work I could to get myself fit as quick as possible. So that gave me the experience of that. And then any injuries I had along the way, I was always prepared. And the only thing that I was worried is, coming back at 36, am I going to be able to do it again? Am I going to be able to have that, not that I'm sharp anymore, but have that, that sharpness, or have that ability still to compete at championship level? And it was a worry, but you don't know until you get out there. And that's why I gave it everything in the rehab. I did all I could. I did all the strength. Even when the season finished, I then, just stayed fit. I stayed ticking over. I made sure I was in the gym. I made sure I was doing my running. And ultimately, when I came back for the season, I was in tip-top shape. I was ready to go. So it's one of those things that you can't really legislate for. Of course, I'm fortunate that those kind of mad injuries like an Achilles can happen to me. But then I follow it out by playing every single minute of every game. So I'm a strong person. I'm a strong mind, and fingers crossed I can be strong this season as well.
Have you always been like that? Because, you've had some great times in the game. You've had promotions, you played in the Premier League. But it's all often the kind of the darkest hours that really shape us as human beings and give us that strength. When you look back, what do you think was the most difficult period of your career, and how did you cope with those challenges?
I'd say the most difficult was surrounding an injury, but it wasn't the injury that caused it. It was my time at Aston Villa. When that came to an end, or was coming to an end basically, was I had basically, the story goes that I dislocated my shoulder 3 times in a month, and therefore I had to have surgery on my shoulder. So my last league game for Aston Villa, I played in at Anfield, scored, and we won 3-1. So my last ever league game for Aston Villa, that was my last game. The manager at the time, Martin O'Neill, was hugging me off the pitch and stuff like that. And what happened after that was just got pied off, just got thrown on the scrap heap. So I had 3 months out with my shoulder. I was
without a word, kind of, you're done.
So,
kind of one of them ones.
Well, it was a strange one, really. Basically, I had 3 months out where your shoulder, the first few weeks, you have to look after it and make sure, you're keeping it stable. But after that, I was fit. I was able to do all the running and stuff like that. I just couldn't do any contact. But I realised that at the time we'd signed James Collins and Richard Dunn. So I looked at it and I thought, well, we've got James Collins, Richard Dunn, Carlos Cuello and Kieran Clark at the time. So I looked at it that I'm probably not going to get back in the team as a centre-half. Why don't I go on loan? So I had Wigan and Celtic that I could have gone on loan to at the time. And I spoke to the manager. He didn't want me to go and told me that I'd be part of the plans. But that wasn't the case. And it was kind of just a way of just keeping me there and having me as a spare part, which actually, kind of, I've not killed my career. Of course, I've had a good career, but I mean, in terms of at the time when at the start of that season, I was still getting into England 30-man squads and stuff like that.
Right.
And then to go from that to not playing at all when I'm fit was difficult. I was helpless. I was just literally going to games, waiting for the players literally to walk off the pitch so that no one was injured, and I'd go home because my mind had gone. I was also having private problems in my personal life with my ex-partner, and that was affecting me as well. So the fact that I didn't have football as my release was a massive thing. So yeah, that was the most difficult thing. Like I say, but stemmed
How
from
did you deal with it then? Did you talk about it? Did you have? I know not many men go and have therapy and stuff like that, but were you just kind of like stiff upper lip? I'm carrying on.
Yeah, I think that is how I was, and I think if it was the same me now, I would reach out for help, because I not that I can diagnose myself. It's probably the one time I could say I probably was depressed. Because, like I say, I know people say that players that you're earning this money and that money, so if you're not playing, like, what does it matter? Well, I know that my kid's going to eat, no problem, yes, but in terms of having a purpose, having a meaning to what you're doing, I wanted that and I wasn't getting that. And then when you go home and the home life's not good as well, you kind of can't avoid the negativity wherever you go. So that was very difficult. But yeah, eventually you have to come out of it. I obviously still had friends and things like that I didn't really speak to about it, but kind of rant to more than anything. But probably never told them how deep it was. But I know now at this age, and knowing that it's not always right to try and be the tough man, as it were. I think I would reach out for help.
Yeah, it's a lot more acceptable to do that now anyway as well, isn't it? Everyone's encouraged to talk. So I hope that young players know now that it's good to sort of get all of that kind of stuff out there, any kind of problems that they might have, and especially young players, because a lot of the time they've got a lot at such a young age to kind of have to think about, and it's such a competitive industry. And dealing with rejection is huge for anyone in any walk of life, but when you're so young as well and you feel like you're on your own, you're dealing with it on your own. So this brings me to when you were, I think, 15, you're at Wimbledon, and that was probably your first sort of big rejection, wasn't it? Is it true that you then wrote letters to various football clubs to try and get trials? Because to me, looking at a 15-year-old lad doing that, I mean, that's something to really admire, because a lot of kids wouldn't have the kind of nous to do that. And one of them paid off, and that's how you got into Luton, right?
Yeah. So I was always good at Sunday League, district level, played for my county, played for Essex and stuff like that. So, but I'd never really been scouted until I was 15. And then Martin Heather from Wimbledon took me there, and they gave me, I had a trial, and they gave me a year contract. Through that year contract, I had growing pains in my hips for about four months of it. So therefore, 4 months into a year's trial as such to get a scholar, it wasn't going to happen. And basically they had a lad that they brought down, I can't remember his name to be honest, but a lad they brought down from Newcastle, a centre half, so it seemed like he was going to get a scholar. So, my head was, I'm just going to stay for as long as possible, get the best training I can, be as fit as I can, and then I'll do what I did. And because the reason I thought of it is because at school, being in year 11, we'd just gone through writing out our CVs.
Right.
So I had the idea that this is obviously 20 years ago, 21 years ago, but when, not every 16-year-old had an agent back then, particularly at lower league level. But I just had the idea that I'll write a football CV out and I'll send it to 30 odd clubs in the southeast. I didn't want to be too far away from home. I really should have gone nationwide, but I didn't want to be too far from home. And it's the best thing I ever did. And I've always been of the idea, you don't ask, you don't get. And I was happy to get nothing back if that happened, but at least I asked a question. And from it, I had Luton Town rang me the day after I sent the letters. Dean Rastrick rang me. I had Colchester sent me a letter back inviting me for like a group trial, and Southend came back to me. Mm-hmm. And I got a load of rejection letters from the likes of like Norwich and Tottenham and teams that tried to sign me. So it was it was a really simple thing that I as a kid just thought, well, I don't have an agent, I don't have anyone that can do this for me, so I'll write these letters. Obviously the internet was quite good then as well, so I got all the addresses and sent him off. Just had to pay for a book of stamps and was good to go. But it's the best thing that ever happened to me, because Luton Town, the club that I went to was a club that also had its problems, and that afforded me my opportunity, same way as these young lads in the Derby team now. And from that, I've built a career. A year after playing in the team, I got a move to the Premier League. So the rest is history as such.
Yeah. What a lesson that is. I mean, my little brother Billy, you played against him at school and district, and he said he was better than you. I said, yeah, look where he is now though, Bill.
Bill would say that though. He thought he was better than everyone.
All that. And nobody will know this, but my mum was the school secretary at your primary school, Beaumont. I was speaking to her this morning, and she said, you were ever such a good boy. You were never in trouble, and you were never outside the headmaster's office. So there you go.
Yeah, I was a good boy. I was always good at school. I enjoyed school. A lot of footballers get the reputation of not being very good at school in terms of being a bit thick or being a bit naughty, so they just had football to fall back on, kind of thing. I enjoyed school. It's the best time of your life. You're with your best mates. You're there every day. And I enjoyed learning. Some things I was good at, some things I weren't, but the ones I weren't good at, I tried better at. It's like anything. It's like in football, if you've got a strength, you're all right with it. If you've got a weakness, you work on it. And that's
the key, though, isn't it? It's the hard work.
Yeah.
Because hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. And I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons for any young player. You can be talented, but if you're not going to work for it, you're probably not going to get there.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing that I can also touch on, because from me getting to go to that Wimbledon trial, Martin Heather asked my PE teacher about me, and asked if he's got anyone he could send. And my PE teacher only wanted to send me because I was the only one he could trust. So although there are probably another maybe 2 or 3 other players that were on a similar level to me, like one of my best mates now, one of my best mates, James, on a similar level to me at that age. But in terms of attitude, he knew he could send me and I'm going to give 100%. I'm going to be yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, because I want to get a contract. Whereas some of my other mates might have been someone puts in a bad tackle on them having a fight. And then all of a sudden that's his reputation.
Yeah.
So that's another lesson that from being good and well, I was myself, but being good, it's what got me in the door at Wimbledon in the first place, and getting in the door at Wimbledon is what got me my CV. So yeah, it's just one of those things.
You're still a good boy, Curtis. I know you are.
I tried to be.
You know, I really hope that everything works out and you get to start again this season with Derby County. It's been fascinating talking to you. Thank you so much for joining the Integral Chat. I'm going to watch you this season. I know you're going to smash it again. Hopefully it won't be your last. But you've got a broadcasting degree now as well. So you'll be doing what I do, probably more qualified than I am, to be honest.
Oh, you've got all the years of experience, B. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, that lots and lots and lots of years. The future's so bright for you, Curtis. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks, B. Thank you very much.